Thank you. Please be seated. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the full council meeting of Tamworth Borough Council. I would remind everybody that this meeting is being recorded and live streamed on YouTube. The first item is apologies, and I have received apologies tonight from the following councillors: Councillor Marie Bailey, Thomas Jay, Jan Wadrop and Dennis Box. Has anybody received any? Yes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor John Wade is on his way. He's just stuck in a bit of traffic on the M42, so he will be with us shortly.
Thank you, Councillor. Second item is declarations of interest. I have not been notified of any declarations. Please raise your hand if you need to declare an interest.
Apologies, Madam Mayor. It's not an interest. It was a request of your good graces, if I may.
Sorry?
It's not a declaration of interest. It's a request of your good graces, if I may. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just very quickly, obviously something that's very close to myself and Councillor Dan Maycock's heart. Friday marked a year since and I will only phrase it as the evil Russian invasion of Ukraine. And I thought it would be fitting for this council to note that event this evening, given the year and the loss of life that's happened in that evil conflict. As you'll be aware, Madam Mayor, both myself and Councillor Maycock drove to Ukraine March last year, taking supplies there. And I think it would be remiss of this council not to note that event 1 year in and to send our love, our support to the people of Ukraine who continue to fight so bravely. And I'm hoping Councillor Maycock will support me in that. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. I'm sure everybody would support you in that. Thank you. Minutes of the last two meetings. I take it that you've all had the opportunity to read the minutes. Can I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor. And a seconder?
Happy to move those, Madam Mayor.
Sorry?
Happy to move those,
Sorry.
Madam Mayor.
Yeah, I'm asking for a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Doyle. All in favour? Against? I think that's unanimous, thank you. I'll sign the minutes. Thank you. Item 4, announcements from the Mayor, leaders, members of the Cabinet and Chief Executive. So we have some announcements. I will hand over to our leader, Councillor Jeremy Oates.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have 4 announcements to make. The first one in the announcements is it's a year since the conflict started in the Ukraine. And many people's worlds have changed beyond any recognition and any return. Families have been separated, homes have been lost, and loved ones have been killed in a horrific act of violence against the country. I'd like to thank those who sprang to action 12 months ago. I'd like to thank those who continue to provide support as we continue to stand with Ukraine. Madam Mayor, my second announcement is in relation to expressing sympathy and support for those affected by the earthquakes in Turkey. How scary must it be to go to bed as normal, not expecting to be woken up by the world collapsing around you? It makes you realise how lucky we are to live in the place we do. We can go to bed pretty much in the knowledge that the world isn't going to collapse around us as we sleep. Madam Mayor, again, I would like to thank those who are supporting the people who have been displaced and the immediate rescue effort in Turkey as a result of those earthquakes. A number of people from Tamworth have jumped on and got involved with fundraising and providing support. Every time there is a crisis, whether it's COVID, an illegal invasion of a country or a natural disaster, the people of Tamworth always step up, and we should be proud to live amongst such wonderful people. Madam Mayor, the next announcement was on the 16th of February. Councillor Tina Clements, in her role as portfolio holder, accompanied me to Stafford, where we joined the leader of the County Council and other district leaders to re-sign the updated military covenant with a commitment to look after our veterans of war and conflict. So I'd like to thank Tina, Councillor Clements, for joining me to re-sign that commitment on behalf of Tamworth Borough Council. And finally, Madam Mayor, on the 14th of January this year, I asked Councillor Paul Turner to take on a champion role, and that is of Town Centre Business Champion. The specifics of that role are to disseminate the vision around the pipeline of projects, to bring businesses together in a business district style approach, and to feed back and champion to the council the positives and the challenges that businesses face within Tamworth. So I'd like to welcome Councillor Turner on board. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, and welcome, Councillor Turner. I think we have an announcement from our Chief Executive.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you for your indulgence in this matter. As members will be aware, in the forthcoming elections in May, there is now some new legislation called voter ID, which in its basic form is people need to take specific types of identification, photographic identification, when they go and vote. And my plea to all elected members is, can they spread that message to when they're out canvassing, when people are unclear what they should do, that there's, as a council, we are going to do sort of social media campaigns. There'll be information on the website, and we're actually taking the step of putting a flyer out to all dwellings in Tamworth. So we're trying to promote the message as much as we can, as is the government. But so my plea is, can you all spread the message, because it's a very important thing. No photo ID, you can't actually vote. And you know, we really want to support democracy in Tamworth as best we can. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Does anybody in the Cabinet wish to make an announcement? Councillor Farrell, was it? Oh, sorry, I thought it was Alex's. Councillor Summers.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just some quick positive news. I'm pleased to announce that we've been shortlisted, or Tamworth's been shortlisted for a Rising Star Award of £10,000 to help fund a local community initiative from Let's Celebrate Towns, which is a nationwide competition run by Visa, designed to highlight towns across the UK that are helping local businesses and communities to thrive. So hopefully we'll be successful in that, and it's, I believe, something we can apply to again for a greater amount later on as well. So that's good news for us.
Thank you. Good news indeed, yes. If there's no more announcements, we'll move on to questions. And tonight we have one question from a member of the public and 9 from councillors. So we'll start with question number 1. And that is from Charlie Rose Taylor Castanera. I hope I forgot your name right. Forgive me if I haven't. If you'd like to put your question.
That was better pronunciation than most people, so thank you. Councillor Tina Clements, as we are just over a week away from International Women's Day, what are Tamworth Borough Council doing to support this event more widely for women in Tamworth?
Councillor Clements.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you to Charlie for your question. Before the meeting of tonight, 4 female councillors, and I believe that one of the Labour Party will catch up with Chris soon. We've recorded a message to go out on International Day, and International Women's Day, sorry, about women in politics, what needs to change, what are the positives, what are the negatives, and it was all about, with yourself, Madam Mayor, just women chatting about what we do best, and trying to entice more women into the field of politics. Going forward, on the Saturday the 11th, we're all meeting up as well for an informal coffee to do what women do best, and that's have a good old natter, and probably talk about men while we're there. I'm also hosting an event on International Women's Day itself with about 25 business women from across Tamworth to promote women in business and how they can help each other in business today, with a female guest speaker in the guise of Sue Hatton from Pickering Solicitors. I'm also going to be visiting local schools, Madam Mayor, and I don't know whether you've heard about the Let Her Play programme, and that's about getting girls into football. And I think if last year taught us anything, it's that the women can play football better than the men. So encouraging more women to play and more young girls to play. And I'm also going to be visiting Tamworth Ladies FC to see how it is at the bottom end of the game rather than at the Lionesses level at the game, champions. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Tina. Have you got a supplementary question?
Yes, please. Thank you, Tina. Can you also confirm, in your opinion, that the Conservative controlling group supports a woman's rights to the maternity leave that she's earned and is entitled to under law? A female councillor historically was deselected, and a key reason given was her taking maternity leave. I've heard today that the Conservative MP for Stafford has been deselected just 2 days after their maternity leave ended. I've also been informed, although not yet seen the proof, that a female Conservative councillor was deselected from the Tamworth Conservative Party, as the local chairman stated that as she has just had a baby, her place is at home. In light of this, can the controlling group really still state support for women?
Councillor Clements.
Madam Mayor, as I fully support women having children, obviously. I've got a daughter myself who's now 24. The other comments that Ms Taylor has made, I think are better going to regulatory, not to myself. I'm the Cabinet Member for Engagement. I don't make the rules.
Thank you. And thank you, Ms Taylor. We now move on to questions from councillors. The first one is from Councillor John Harper. John Harper, you have a question for the leader.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have several issues in my Bolhall ward that include deteriorating road surfaces and overgrown trees. Will the leader meet with me and representatives of Staffordshire County Council with a view to building a plan to address these issues, which are of great concern for many Bolhall residents?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Harper. As per our conversation last week, I've been more than happy to arrange and attend a visit and a walk around of your ward to look at the issues, not only those stated here, but all of those that relate to either the Borough Council or the County Council. And on your behalf, I will invite representatives from the Borough Council and relevant officers to accompany us on that visit. Historically, I have done visits like that in the Bolhall ward, and I'm happy to do that again, and we can create a plan of action to improve on some of the issues that you raised, Councillor Harper.
Councillor Harper, do you have a supplementary question?
No, that's absolutely full and precise.
Right, thank you. We move on to the second one from Councillor Chris Cook, who will ask Councillor Robert Pritchard a question. Councillor Cook.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The castle has seen a number of the litter bins vandalised and actually burned. From mindless vandals. So what is the authority doing to address this matter? Thank you.
Councillor Pritchard.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Cook. Vandalism is taken very seriously, and this is criminal action. These petty acts by moronic individuals ruin everyone's enjoyment of the town centre and castle grounds. It's hugely disappointing that certain individuals have been causing repeated vandalism in the castle grounds, with bins attacked, damaged, burned, and recently the County Council's information board being smashed. All of these incidents have been reported to the police for further investigation with crime numbers, and they will allow for review of CCTV footage to understand if any of these perpetrators can be identified. There's a weekly community safety partnership antisocial behaviour meeting which the police attend, and these incidents there are discussed with the police and how reoccurrences can be prevented. I understand the police have a dedicated ASB patrol car and the Castle Grounds is included in this patrol route. In addition, town centre officers regularly patrol this area. The council is working hard to repair or replace bins as they are damaged by these mindless and sad individuals.
Thank you, Councillor Pritchard. Do you have a supplementary question, Councillor Cook?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So the portfolio holder right to the police, asking them to take further action to address this important matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pritchard.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm more than happy to write to the police and welcome all the councillors to co-sign that letter.
Thank you. The next question is also from Councillor Chris Cook and also to Councillor Pritchard. Councillor Cook.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just to clarify, when I asked this one, it was actually addressed to the leader of the council, if that's okay. On behalf of a resident who contacted me recently, could the leader tell us why the works are going on at the assembly rooms for the access? Thank you.
Thank you. Is that a question to the leader or to Councillor Pritchard? Councillor Oates.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Cook. During the refurbishments of the assembly rooms, there was a shortage of certain materials due to market pressures. The stones that were signed off for the front steps and the accessibility ramp were not available at the time and would not have been available until after the scheduled opening date of the venue. It was decided that temporary stone would be laid until the original and more fitting stone became available. Once the stonework became available, a time slot of early 2023 was agreed for the steps and the ramp to be refurbished as per the original designs that this council approved and at the time seemed deemed to be less inconvenient to venue users. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Have you got a supplementary question?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Who has to pay for all this? Thank you.
Councillor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Cook. All the works completed on the Assembly Rooms refurbishment were funded by Tamworth Borough Council and its partners, including local enterprise partnerships and heritage lottery funding.
Thank you. The next question is from Councillor Daniel Maycock, and he will ask the leader of the council, Councillor Jeremy Oates.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Would the leader agree with me that it is imperative that Tamworth residents take part in the consultation on the future of inpatient mental health services in South East Staffordshire, which will be affecting the future of the George Bryan Centre? Thank you.
Councillor Oates.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Maycock. The short answer is yes. It's vitally important that members of the public take part in the consultation. I would encourage members of the public to take part in all public sector consultation. However, this one is a critical issue. We've been lobbying to get the George Bryant Centre reopened. Since the arson attack in 2019, the George Bryant Centre has been unable to serve the patients as it once did. Not only that, the NHS Trust took this as an opportunity to close down the remainder of the building and move mental health services to Stafford. Time has moved on since then, and the NHS Trust has put forward no business case to rebuild the George Bryant Centre and re-establish the local mental health support services. They are, however, looking at other investments elsewhere in the town, but they have not committed to or drawn up a plan to replace the George Bryant Centre. For me, this is not good enough. We've been lobbying the Trust, and the last time I wrote to them, we secured a meeting with senior planners and a discussion about the future of the centre and about the other investment in Tamworth. And I'm quite happy that we should write again as a second time to reiterate the position that we have, that we need that George Bryant Centre rebuilding and reopening. So we've lobbied the ICB and the Department of Health to get the George Bryant Centre back on track and back in action, and I would encourage any residents in Tamworth to take part in that consultation. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Have you got a supplementary question, Councillor Maycock?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Oates. Would you allow the opportunity for...
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Maycock. Absolutely. I'll get that letter drafted and we'll get it circulated, and anyone who wishes to put their name to it is more than welcome to do so. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from Councillor Samuel Smith, and he wishes to ask Councillor Oates a question. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Tamworth Library on Corporation Street is currently undergoing a major refurbishment. During these works, the library services, as well as opening hours, have been maintained at the temporary Albert Street location. The last month, I have twice used both printing and computer facilities at Albert Road and found the equipment, services and friendliness of staff to be outstanding. Tamworth Library, Corporation Street, is scheduled to reopen at the end of spring. Would the leader agree with me that the County Council's refurbishment of Tamworth Library is fantastic news for Tamworth?
Thank you. Councillor Oates.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to say we're pleased and we praise the investment in Tamworth Library. We're committed to public services, which include libraries, and this commitment has been backed up by the County Council's investment in Tamworth. Many parts of the country and even county have seen their libraries closed or moved to community management. In Tamworth's case, we've seen investment in the library in the town centre. During the refurbishment works, which started in October, the library service has moved, as you said, to Albert Road, and the temporary building on Albert Road is a good space and is fully staffed and provides a good service to users. However, when the service returns to Corporation Street, the refurbished library will offer a full range of books, computer access and activity. The reopening date is expected to be early June now, which is just in time to celebrate the opening of the library, which was performed by Britain's first female Prime Minister, Margaret Thatcher, 50 years ago. As part of the reopening of the library, Tamworth councillors are encouraging everybody to join the library, get a library card and see what the facilities are on offer to the public. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Smith, do you have a supplementary question?
I do not, thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Before we go on, Ms Taylor, could I ask you please to sit in the public space and not with the councillors? Thank you. We go on to question number 7, and this is Councillor Danny Cook will ask Councillor Summers a question. Councillor Cook.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Question for Councillor Summers. The Leader of the Council created the Cabinet position Voluntary Sector, Town Centre, Evening Economy and Community Safety in December 2021. I recall it well. I was handed this Cabinet position at the time. I held it for around 33 days. Removing Christmas and New Year, I probably had it for less than 2 weeks before I resigned on principles. You replaced me in January 2022, Councillor Summers. My question is simple. Given that key elements of the portfolio taken from the Constitution are evening economy and town centre relationships, working in partnership with Councillor Clements, can you confirm what has been actioned, investigated, reviewed or planned in regard to the health of the town centre economy over the past 13 months, other than Future High Streets Fund or Gungate, which of course my legacy? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cook. Councillor Summers?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Cook, for the question. Although the question is deemed simple, the answer is probably not, and it's quite long. But anyway, firstly, since you referenced them, Councillor, Future High Street Fund and Gungate are not so insignificant that they can be dismissed in terms of the health of the town centre economy. Since the point of them is, of course, to boost it, they will form a significant portion of the regeneration of the town centre, as you know. Neither are directly my responsibility under my portfolio, although, of course, I do contribute to them as part of Cabinet. I am surprised that you chose to refer to these ongoing projects as your legacy, since I know that a significant amount of teamwork involving both those on your Cabinet at the time and the officers that do the heavy lifting on our plans was significant. I feel it's an injustice to let them, for their contributions, to be dismissed as one person's legacy. And let's face it, Councillor Cook, no one's likely to remember either of us in the history books for our work on Tamworth Borough Council. And my own personal feeling is, rather than chasing legacies, I prefer to work to the best of my ability with my group in a team effort to effect change for the greater good of Tamworth. But anyway, in direct answer to your question, in the past 12 months, the authority has developed and consulted on a new gambling policy, statement of licensing policy and cumulative impact assessment, and most recently the taxi licensing policy that's due before full council in March. The taxi policy, I'm proud to say, if passed at the next full council, will remove barriers, significant barriers to entering the trade, such as, just for one example, increasing the age limit for suitable vehicles to 10 years. Both myself and Councillor Tina Clements, in partnership, collaborated on the policy with the responsible officer to ensure we have a common sense approach to taxi licensing. We also are currently investigating incentives to increase the number of taxi drivers and thus taxis within our town centre, which is something I heard the cry for loud and clear upon taking the portfolio. Officers have been carrying out enforcement operations in the form of safer nights in partnership with police, consisting of visits to licensed and food premises to ensure compliance. There's just some of the examples of what they do. And I'm actually going out with them on the 25th of March, I think, to see what they do. The Responsible Bodies Group's been reinstated. It's promoted successful engagement with a full range of partners, and officers are taking a proactive role in both pub watch meetings with local licensees and the Community Safety Forum. I'm also looking to instigate, with the help of Councillor Tina Clements and Councillor Paul Turner, who's just been appointed our Town Centre Business Champion, of course, a business and licensee forum. The Economic Development team have commissioned 3 separate projects funded through UK Shared Prosperity Fund, which all incorporate the Town Centre Business Support Package for Town Centre businesses, as well as a recently launched Town Centre B-Scene Business Grant scheme. There are 3 feasibility studies which have been commissioned. The first study will focus on overall business data research. The second will focus on a tourism strategy for Tamworth, and the third will focus on a place marketing strategy. The information and data gathered from these feasibility studies will inform and drive future council plans and support further potential work commissioned through the UK SPF, which will include a town centre focus. Nearly done. Digital Islands are currently delivering a business support package for town centre businesses, an online business hub, which is free to join and has been created and currently has 104 members registered. The online hub is the entry point to access a wide range of support, advice, training courses, one-to-one advice and help from a range of business specialists, workshops and webinars, both online and in person, which will be organised up till 2025. And hub members can shape what is included as part of the events. The Tamworth Town Centre B-Scene Business Grant offers grants between £2,500 and £10,000 to existing businesses with the premises based in the town centre who have been trading more than 6 months. The grant's designed to assist businesses in establishing or improving their physical or digital presence to allow them to attract and reach new customers and establish or improve an effective branded image. The objective of the grant is to support town centre businesses to adapt their businesses to gain new customers, increase turnover and or increase opportunities for survival in the current economic climates. The first round of applications are due to go to nominations and grants on the 15th of March. Further round delivered July-August 2023 and again in 2024. Other things going on, I've directed our Assistant Director of Partnerships to work closely with the organisation Tamworth Street Angels, who I had the pleasure of patrolling with last year, to ensure that they can continue their amazing voluntary service on the streets of Tamworth during the evenings. I'll take the opportunity now, if I may, Madam Mayor, to thank Vic and Wendy Vandenberg for bringing the Street Angels to Tamworth, and I can assure them I will do what I can to assist them. And let's not forget Purple Flag, the status I hope as an authority we will one day in the future achieve. All of the hard work being carried out currently is to assess against the Purple Flag criteria to identify what more we need to do to attain it. It's not a short process, and I envisaged it would take around 3 years from when I first announced it. And with Purple Flag, we will be able to highlight proudly that Tamworth is a safe and fun place to have a night out. Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I look forward to the supplementary, no doubt.
Thank you, Councillor Summers. Councillor Cook, do you have a supplementary?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Summers, for that long list. First of all, just to clarify, I did not dismiss in any way, shape or form Future High Streets Fund or Gungate. I simply said they were projects that were already there, dating back to when I was leader of this council. I do not take away anybody's involvement in that. It was a massive team effort. I note from the answer, a gambling policy, a licensing policy, taxes of no more than 10 years, a community of impact zone, food compliance, community safety, business grants of 2k, and then we talk about the current economic climate. We barely scratched the problem. These are all things that were happening long before Councillor Summers took the portfolio. I think the meat of my question is, what have you done, Councillor Summers? Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Summers?
Thank you, Councillor Cook. We are merely caretakers of our roles, and no matter what you started, I will continue. There's little point answering that question. It's a bit, it doesn't actually really make any sense, to be quite honest. We continue the work we all started as a team that you were a part of for the past however long it had been, or legacy as you call it. Apparently, according to literature I've seen bearing your name, the last 19 years was just a waste of time. Well, you were part of it, and we're continuing to improve, building upon that legacy of yours to make it even better than it once was.
Thank you, Councillor Summers. The next question is also from Councillor Cook, and he will ask the leader, Councillor Jeremy Oates, a question.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Oates, you will of course be aware that Tamworth Borough Council's monitoring officer has for the last 10 months been pushing that the council review and potentially adopt the new LGA Code of Conduct for councillors, something the Audit and Governance Committee has found on its agenda a few times over the last year. Within the consultation from the LGA is the following statement: General principles of councillor conduct. Everyone in public office at all levels, all who serve the public or deliver public services, including ministers, civil servants, councillors and local authority officers, should uphold the 7 principles of public life, also known as the Nolan Principles. I assume the council leader supports the Code of Conduct, otherwise I fail to see why this would be continuing the agenda. I could be wrong, and for some reason the agenda's cut off the rest of my question, Madam Mayor, so let me just find it. Yeah, so have I. Bear with me. Yeah, what's been put out on the agenda is missing something. I assume the council leader supports this upgrade of the Code of Conduct. Otherwise, I fail to see why officers would be continuing with this agenda. I could be wrong. In that case, can the leader of the council remind this chamber of the 7 principles, aka the Nolan Principles, and can the council leader state his belief in holding all these councillors to these principles? Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Cook. Councillor Oates.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The 7 principles are selflessness, integrity, objectivity, accountability, openness, honesty and leadership. Do I believe that holding councillors to these principles? I believe these are good principles and are good guidance for not only councillors and people in public office, but everyone in general to lead a positive life. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Cook.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Can I thank the Leader of the Council for that very honest answer? Absolutely agree with everything he has stated. Some in this chamber will be aware, Madam Mayor, that recently the Independent Future Group's Facebook page was hacked and fake posts were put out from that Facebook page. I have no proof. and I'm making no accusation, but it's come to our attention there is a possibility a Conservative councillor did so, but I make no accusation this evening, Madam Mayor. Will the council leader agree with me that if it is proved that a Conservative councillor is hacking other people's and other political groups' Facebook pages, he will ask them to stand down? Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Oates.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm not aware of the issue. However, I would welcome a conversation with Councillor Daniel Cook afterwards. It's a bit of an odd supplementary based on the original question, but I appreciate where Councillor Cook is coming from on this. Linking it back to the principles and the code of conduct, I would recommend to everybody, if you believe a member of the council has breached the code of conduct, whether it be the old one or the updated one, it is your duty to ensure that is reported to the relevant authority, whether it's a Facebook hack or any other activity which doesn't fit the Nolan principles. So I will follow that up with Councillor Cook after the meeting because I'm not aware of this issue, and I can have a discussion and find out some details after the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. The next question is from Councillor Michelle Cook, who also got a question for Councillor Jeremy Oates.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to ask Councillor Oates, at the joint budget scrutiny meeting a few weeks ago, I asked Councillor Robert Pritchard to confirm which play areas were due to be refurbished as part of the budget proposals, which are due to obviously be discussed this evening. Councillor Pritchard responded during that meeting that he was unable to confirm this due to an officer being off sick. Following that meeting, I emailed him on the 4th of February and the 13th of February asking the same question. After receiving no reply, I emailed yourself on the 16th, which you replied to on very early on the 17th, saying you found out and saying that you'd find out. I chased again on the 23rd of February, and then again, you again replied quickly to confirm that you are still waiting for Councillor Pritchard to confirm. Can you please therefore confirm to me which play areas are due to be upgraded as part of the budget proposals? Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Cook. Councillor Oates.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have since chased Councillor Pritchard again, and the member of staff is still off sick, and I still have not received the report this is in question. I can assure you that as soon as I receive that, I will pass it over to Councillor Cook.
Thank you. Councillor Cook.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you for that update, Councillor Oates. I'm sure all members will be kind of really keen to understand which play areas will be upgraded and when, so that residents can start to enjoy them as soon as possible. On what you've just said there, I do just have one small supplementary question. As councillors, we're elected to do a job, no matter if you like the person you're trying to help or whether or not you respect them. Ultimately, you should act professionally. Especially as a cabinet member, that's even more so. Can you confirm in this instance if you think Councillor Pritchard did not act professionally in this matter by not replying in any way, shape or form to me, not even with an out of office, or I can't say, or even just the information that I've now waited, 25 days for, following that first thing. So, and I ended up having to ask you that question. So, yeah, do you think he acted professionally or could he have done better? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Oates.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I believe the information that Councillor Pritchard gave at the Scrutiny Committee has not changed, and therefore, as soon as he gets the information from his officer, that will be circulated. So, do I believe Councillor Pritchard has acted inappropriately or not? Councillor Pritchard still doesn't have the information, and therefore still cannot pass it on. Has he been courteous or not? I've only got what's been said in this chamber. I do think, though, Madam Mayor, that there's a particular example we've just seen there. And the example is about how can we attack Councillor Pritchard for being incompetent or discourteous. The real issue here is the refurbishment of play areas and representation. And I've read recently about putting people before politics. But what we see here is an example of politics before people. So what I will do is, on behalf of Councillor Cook and the people she represents, I will not only chase Councillor Pritchard for that list, I will also chase to make sure any play areas in Amington are considered on that list, because their current councillor is more concerned as to whether Councillor Pritchard is discourteous or incompetent, rather than chasing up the issues as to whether the play areas in Amington, the ward she represents, are being refurbished. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. We come on to question number 10, and it's from Councillor Harper, again to Jeremy Oates. Councillor Harper.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Unauthorised parking in Market Street, George Street, Cowell Hill and St Editha's Square has become a major issue in the town centre, with some motorists brazenly using the pedestrianised areas as a free car park without hindrance or any fear of repercussions. Would the leader consider discussing this matter with the relevant county councillors with a view to finding a solution to this unacceptable practice? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harper. Councillor Oates.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And believe me, I'm as frustrated as anybody is with the situation in the town centre. The enforcement of stationary vehicle offences sits with Clear Streets, and the enforcement of moving vehicle offences sits clearly with the police. As I stated around the Code of Conduct, I would recommend to everybody, members of the public and councillors, if you believe somebody is committing an offence or breaching the parking regulations, please report them to the relevant enforcement authority. The difficulty we have, Councillor Harper, is the traffic restrictions in the town centre are old, incomplete, often misunderstood. There are a number of reasons why vehicles can and can't travel through the town centre, and there are a number of different areas and reasons where vehicles can and can't park. It's not a clear piece of legislation in terms of the restriction, It's not a clear order. I can confirm that Staffordshire County Council, through a divisional highways programme, is reviewing the traffic restriction orders which affect the town centre. This is going on because A, they need reviewing and they're causing confusion and being misunderstood, and B, while we regenerate the town centre, it's opportune to ensure that we have the right restrictions in going forward. So yes, work in progress. It is unacceptable. We need to get it right. We need the police to step up. We need the county council to step up, and we need the clear streets to step up. So we need to ensure that traffic restrictions are correct and they're applied correctly and enforcement action is taken correctly.
Thank you. Do you have a supplementary question, Councillor Harper?
Just very briefly, Madam Mayor, will the leader invite Staffordshire County Council and the police to join you and myself for a site visit to see for themselves these respective areas? Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Oates.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Sorry, I was a bit premature there. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Harper. Yes, absolutely. I think we've discussed it in this chamber. We've exchanged emails with a number of partners. And it's actually time to get down and see it face to face together with the police service, with the county council, highways team, yourself and myself. And we'll get that date sorted. What I'll do actually is I'll extend that invitation to the castle councillors, as it sits within their ward. So yes, I'll get onto that as soon as possible.
Thank you, Councillor Oates. We come to item number 6 on the agenda: Corporate Vision, Priorities Plan, Budget and Medium-Term Financial Strategy 2023-24. I'll hand over to the leader, Councillor Oates.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, before Council this evening, we have the final version of the Corporate Vision, Priorities Plan, Budget and Medium-Term Financial Strategy. Now, this is following the same discussion route and process as last year, and all members have had the opportunity to consider, discuss and suggest changes to the documents before us. This has taken place through members' seminars in September, looking at the consultation and feeding into that, having the opportunity to feed into that. A discussion on the emerging policy proposals in October, reports to Cabinet and member sessions in December, a joint budget scrutiny committee in January, a second public airing of the budget papers at Cabinet and a Treasury Management session before being recommended this evening to full council. So there's been a wide opportunity for all councillors to have some sort of input in the setting of the MTFS. It is well documented that not for the first time we're having to create a framework with a backdrop of uncertainty, from high inflation, increased interest rates and turbulence in the energy market. These and many other factors are outside Tamworth Borough Council's control, but they potentially have huge impacts on our operation. The Council has had to estimate and mitigate against these in the same fashion as we always have. The difference this year is the uncertainty is more varied and greater, and the figures are much higher. Now is the time that Tamworth Council needs to help Tamworth realise its true potential. We cannot stand still, we must keep pushing. So, Madam Mayor, we have to consider a prudent budget before us. The report details considerations tackled and responses to these, including risk assessments. Madam Mayor, I'm going to be brief and go through some highlights. So the headline figures are General Fund net cost of services at £8.8 million, a transfer of £1.2 million from General Fund balances. This is the fourth lowest since 2016. Band D council tax proposed to be set at £196.89 per year. That's an increase of 2.6%, which is £5. And that's on a backdrop of CPI running at 10% since last July. That's around 10 pence per week. Now that's on a band D. 2/3 of people in Tamworth are on band A or band B. So 2/3 of the people of Tamworth will pay £131.26 per year or £153.14 per year in council tax. That's the gross council tax to Tamworth Borough Council. The General Fund capital programme is £10 million over the next 5 years and has a revenue account expenditure of £18 million going forward. A transfer of £823,000 from HRA balances is there to balance the housing revenue account budget. On the housing revenue account, rent is going to be increased this year at a cap of 7% on the average rent. It's important that this is noted, as historically we have applied a CPI plus 1%. This year that would have meant an 11% increase in housing rents. The government have capped that at 7%, so we have had to take the 7% increase on housing rent. Now, just for an explanation, each 1% increase would equate to an additional income of £200,000. So each 1% is £1 million over 5 years. So we've had to come in at 4% low. So that's a significant impact, or a potential significant impact on the housing revenue account going forward. The housing capital programme has been discussed a number of times at scrutiny, and things have moved within that, and that is at £37.9 million for the next 5 years. So, Madam Mayor, within these papers, you will see more investment in our leisure and culture offer. You'll see more investment in outdoor events, such as Summer Festival and a celebration of the coronation of King Charles. More investment in our commitment to hit net zero within our operation, with funding and resource to support that. More investment in green vehicles within our fleet. More investment within civic pride and the continuation of the awards that Councillor Clements introduced. More investment in our housing services. There's an additional £1.8 million capital investment in Future High Street Fund to come. There's £581,000 capital investment in our historic castle, accompanied by £688,000 capital investment for this building we are in now. That's an extra £3 million for the town centre and protecting and celebrating our heritage. More investments in leisure. Following the increase in people enjoying open spaces during the pandemic, this council is committed to repair the vandalised boardwalk in Bowl Hall, refurbish play areas, invest in football pitches for the first time in over a decade, and keep the linear lakes clear. That's £1.5 million in sport and leisure in Tamworth supporting healthy and active lifestyles. Madam Mayor, this is a robust and prudent budget that protects the Council from many of the challenges it faces in supporting the population who live, spend time or work in Tamworth. This budget will drive forward, building on regeneration projects we are running and building on the opportunities that Tamworth has to offer for everybody. Madam Mayor, I move the motion that this Council accepts recommendations 1 through to 28.
Can I second that, Madam Mayor?
Thank you. Right, we'll go to questions. Who would like to start? Councillor Cook.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've got quite a few questions this evening, so I apologise if I take up a lot of time. Obviously, question to the Leader of the Council. At the Budget Workshop, with the update to all members on the 9th of November 2022, the Council Leader reported that the General Fund revenue budget had a £13.6 million hole after 5 years. Can the Leader of the Council confirm what the deficit is of tonight over 5 years on the General Fund revenue? I note at the top of page 5 it's 1.1 million in balances over 3 years, but what currently is the damage over 5? Because historically this Council has, financially planned over 5. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Oates.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you for remembering I was the last leader to present a 5-year budget in 2008. The deficit over 5 years is just shy of £8.3 million, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Are there any further questions?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So just Councillor opens the budget for 2011. That was also 5 years. The General Fund Capital Programme requires 3 million in borrowing. Not the first time. Historically done exactly the same myself. Not having a pop about it. Will this be covered by internal or external borrowing? Are we aware yet?
Thank you. Councillor Oates.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll refer to the answer I gave the last 2 times this question was asked. We will assess all borrowing as and when we require that cash coming forward. If we can borrow from ourselves, we always will do. There was a Treasury Management session, I think it was only last week, where we discussed the different options that are available to all local authorities going forward. So we will assess each opportunity at the time. We will also look at what other capital income is available to prevent borrowing, if at all possible.
Thank you. Are there any further questions? Councillor Cook.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Sorry about this. Thank you. On page 5 of the online pages, I note the following statement. It should be noted that there are no debt repayment costs for the HRA, and the government has now lifted the previous debt cap of 79.407 million. The current HRA capital financing requirement stands at 69.839 million, with planned borrowing in 22-23 of 0.0088 million. Can the Leader explain this statement to the Chamber, or have I misunderstood it?
Thank you. Councillor Oates.
I can't even find it right now. So on page 5, I'm on mod.gov, so my report starts on page 35 of mod.gov. You found it? Repeat that, Councillor Cook. I can't find it. I can't find the paragraph you're referring to.
Councillor.
Tell you what, I'll be nice this evening, Madam Mayor. Rather than walk Councillor Oates into a trap that he's probably going to get her out of anyway, shall I just actually get to the meat of my question? I was going to get to in about 3 questions' time anyway. Would that be simpler? Yeah. Obviously, the statement says that there is planned borrowing in the HRA of 0.0088 million. Currently, we have a balances after 5 years of 2.2 million. Why would there be a requirement for borrowing? It also says there are no debt repayments in the HRA, but yet when we did housing reform back in 2011-12, We actually structured, when we gave the government best part of 67 million to buy the houses that were ours anyway, we actually structured it so we would only ever really pay the interest and carry the debt. That enabled things like Kerrier and Tinkers Green, etc., etc. I'm trying to say, have I misunderstood this, that we're not making that payment this year, and why would we need to borrow when there's actually balances in the HRA? That's the meat of my question, really.
Thank you. Councillor Rhodes.
It is quite a technical one. I'll have to get back to you with a definitive answer in regards to the payments and the interest versus the payment against the direct debt. In terms of borrowing within the HRA, as we know, the HRA is funded through a number of different mechanisms, and the HRA capital is effectively a revenue contribution to capital. So as a result, short-term borrowing will be around that cash flow rather than a need to borrow because we don't have the cash coming forward. So that'll be a cash flow issue.
Thank you. Councillor Cook.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. At the top of page 9, and obviously we're having that historic council issue where pages online and pages we're looking at, and depending which member of which part of which agenda you're looking at, our pages never seem to flow. It's a historic problem that we never seem to quite solve. But it is top of page 9 if you look at it online. It's the efficiency statement, recovery and reset programme. It states financial resilience has been the key requirement for local authorities at any time. But in the current crisis, it has assumed unprecedented importance. Circa 5.1 million already delivered through reset and recovery. Post the Leaders Workshop on the 30th of November 2022, another 1.8 million has been identified. I pull this council back to the budget I presented in 2021, which, as you'll recall, was during the pandemic, so it was done on Teams. Bless the pandemic. We were around 8 million adrift over 5 years in the general fund revenue back then. Reset and recovery was the plan to radically shift the majority of that. What's happened, we're still here and we're still in the same problem. Have we cashed in reset and recovery?
Thank you.
It's page 43.
Who's that to?
Page 43, case.
Page 43?
Of the report.
Yeah, of the report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was waiting to be called. Apologies. No, we haven't cashed in the R&R project. It's still very much live and still ongoing. As Councillor Cook has rightly raised, the challenges to local government continue to go on. The increase in costs and the increase in demand on services continues. And as much as we like to think we can manage demand, people still need our help and will still come to us. As I mentioned earlier, we're in a volatile period, and not only is the uncertainty increasing, so are the figures. Some people said about R&R, actually, council should be doing it anyway. Why is it taking a pandemic to give us that kick? I'm not sure that is necessarily true, but it's certainly given us the kick we need to. So we are still continuing to work on R&R. We have had a number of different opportunities present themselves and a number of different opportunities which have gone by the wayside. So we're working through the project. We're still committed to improving the way we work, and we're still committed to generating the savings that we can see going forward. And each year we will continue to review our operation and continue to make efficiencies. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Oates. Councillor Cook.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Noting the answer the leader has kindly given. If I look at the policy increases from the 2022 budget that was presented to this chamber, there was an adjustment in year 1, which is the year we've just enjoyed, of 1.7 million in benefit. However, if you remove the business rate reliefs of Section 31 grant, the new homes bonus, the business rates levy repayment, you actually find we increased spending in the general fund of around 2 million in 1 year. Last year. So when I asked, was reset and recovery cashed in? I mean, was it cashed in to allow growth items in last year's budget? As I stated, we were give or take 8 million adrift 2 years ago. We have since enacted reset and recovery, which gave us 5.1 million over the period of the budget back. We've since then been told in these papers another 1.8 million has been found. How are we still at 8 million? That is my question. Is it because of overspending last year?
Thank you. Councillor Oates.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think what Councillor Cook has described is the annual review of the budget and its process. Each year we have aspirations, each year we have changes in responsibility and changes in what we want to achieve. And we go through the process of having to decide whether we can afford those or not. We go through the process of deciding whether we can afford the statutory services we deliver or not. And we also go through the process of looking at technical adjustments in terms of changes in income, changes in expenditure, changes in inflation, changes in interest rates. That's what we do, that's this process. Has the cost of the Borough Council increased? Yes. Will it increase again next year? Highly likely. We are here to deliver services and provide the best for the people of Tamworth. Is the deficit still 8 million over 5 years? Yeah, it is. It's thereabouts. Will it be next year? Highly likely, because we don't have the information and the security we need in terms of our income. We can only predict what we know about, and we can predict what we know about almost accurately for 3 years. We review it every year because things change. We're in a different climate to where we were 12 months ago. We're in a different climate to where we were 24 months ago. And we will continue to review that. And that is the job of the budget process, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Cook.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Continuing that theme, and can I thank the lady for that answer, because it does lead me into my next question. On page 40, and let's not get into that, it's basically policy change OPS3, OPS3, establishment of a 3-year budget plan for annual Castle summer events, 50k per year. Wow, when this was presented to councillors by the leader on the 9th of November 22, it was $500,000 a year. What happened?
Councillor Oates.
I think that's quite obvious. We couldn't afford $500,000, so we cut our cloth accordingly.
Councillor Cook.
Thank the lady for that honest answer, Madam Mayor. On the 9th of November, you had 47k per year for better cleaning of the Castle grounds toilets. Where has that vanished to?
Councillor Oates.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. That has been encompassed in our current operation through savings we've made and changes to the operation within what we currently deliver. So we did not need that additional expenditure.
Any further question? Councillor Cook.
Oh, we're here for a while yet, Madam Mayor. I'll make this a little easier on Councillor Oates and I'll get to my point. On the 9th of November, you had 20k per year for heritage events in the Castle grounds. 10k to deal with the damage to the Castle and other assets from pigeons, 200k for shop front grants, and 129k additional support for the assembly rooms. Oh, and more. It was one hell of a political wish list. A lot of it has now been removed. Now, my question is basically this, and forgive me if this takes me a second to get to the point, Madam Mayor. So there was a massive wish list as you let the children into the sweetie shop. Now, Madam Mayor, I am fundamentally aware that Councillor Oates is not economically illiterate. He has a degree in economics, as I understand it, from Northampton University. So he's not economically illiterate, and we know he isn't. Therefore, can he explain the following? Post a decade of austerity, during a recession caused by a global pandemic, during a cost of living crisis with the highest average energy prices ever seen, during a massive war in Europe, who thought it was a good idea to task our officers, already struggling with capacity issues, to grow the general fund budget by around 4 million over 5 years with these vanity projects?
Thank you. Councillor Oates.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. There's been a change in style in terms of the way I go forward and the previous leader. And I will not dismiss any idea from any member until it's been thoroughly looked at. Doesn't mean it's affordable at the end of the day, but if we don't consider them and document our considerations, what's the point in us being here? We can sit here and just go, we're doing the statutory, nothing else, statutory services, that's all we deliver. And we can all go home. We can let a computer do that. Well, actually, everyone in this room cares about Tamworth and cares about the place where we live or work. So everybody is welcome to have an idea, and everyone's welcome to feed that in. None of these people are experts at outdoor events or at rebuilding shopping centres or regeneration. We're all lay people. We all have ideas based on our passion to improve Tamworth. Throw that into the budget process. Let's see what the costs are. If we can afford it and we get support, great, we can deliver it. If we can't afford it and we can't get support, then it falls by the wayside. I'm not going to suppress the ideas of any councillor in the room, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Oates. Councillor Cook.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Absolutely agree. Councillors should not be suppressed, but there has to be a realism. Officers are up against it capacity-wise after a decade of recession. Austerity, Madam Mayor. We should not be in a position as a council where we're tasking our officers to look for the impossible. That was the meat of my question. I'll still frame the question exactly the same. Who thought it was an idea to put officers through that?
You, Councillor Oates.
Who thought it was a good idea for officers to consider the ideas and suggestions of councillors? I think that's enshrined in our democratic process, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Do you wish to reply?
Another question, Madam Mayor, if that's all right. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm going to make this my last question. And I'll tell you what, I'm going to offer Councillor Oates a little gift. I'm actually going to support this budget tonight, but we'll get back to that shortly. The only final question is, and if you want to say come back to me, it's not going to change my vote this evening. If you want to come back to me, it is technical. I do accept it. Obviously, you've got a policy change FIN4, remove contribution to business rates volatility reserve. Can't say volatility. Can the leader please explain what this means? Because historically, we know with business rate reset coming up, etc., that is a risk area to this council. I just wonder, is that prudent at this time? Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Oates.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. There are a number of contingencies within the budget papers in front of us. Some of them encompass previous ones, so some of them have disappeared and will be encompassed in those other contingencies. So that's where some of those that Councillor Cook has referred to will reappear. They may not be explicit in that contingency pot, but that's where they've moved to into a centralised contingency pot around business, around corporate rent returns and around rates and that whole picture.
Thank you. Are there any further questions? Councillor Daniels.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. Apologies if these questions are not quite budget based, but it's just for some more information to do with one of the items, if that's all right. And it may go to Councillor Oates, but potentially some of the Wilnecote Ward councillors, if that's all right. Would it be possible to get more information about Wilnecote swimming pool? As I noticed that we'll no longer be supporting the free swimming as it isn't currently operational. Would it just be possible to get some more information on that? Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Oates.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Basically, I was going to say the school, but the leisure facility stopped offering the free swimming that we were supporting, and as a result, we stopped paying for it at the time. So it's sat in the budget for a couple of years and hasn't been used because they've chosen to move away from that agreement. So it's just a removal from the budget for something that happened a short while ago.
Thank you. Are there any further questions? No? Oh. Okay, Michelle.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Question for Councillor Oates. Again, one of those questions where you go, if you can just expand, that would be really helpful. So on page 23 of the online report, where it's got sustainability implications, there is a point about proposals included for 2023-24 on climate change, which includes an additional post for a period of 3 years to kickstart activity on the net zero work stream, as well as a permanent budget of £5,000 for net zero activity, specifically as referenced from the Cabinet report in June of last year. My question kind of really is about the fact that at the moment I know we've made a commitment by the end of next year to get the climate change kind of list ultimately of what's going to happen and what we're going to do to move to net zero, and I won't bore councillors with my kind of views on the timescale. However, in terms of the 3 years kind of the post, what do you anticipate that person to be doing? Fully support the fact it's been in there, it's just what they're looking at. But in terms of the £5,000 for net zero activity, is there anything specific that's planned, or is it just kind of wait and see what people come up with during the year? Because it is a really important thing, and the more we can do on it, the better. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Oates.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And the councillor will recall the discussion we had at a recent might not have been that recent, but a scrutiny meeting around that. And this policy line is in response to that request for that resource to go in. So the policy line in terms of the member of staff and the resource is to take the baseline information we've had and the work that's currently going on in terms of the milestones and the projects, and manage that and turn those into reality. The £5,000 there is for the officer to do that within the current framework. So I'm expecting within the first year, certainly, that the officer will come back, not only have spent that, but also come back with a number of different projects and budget items for us to consider going forward. So that's an officer to get on with the job of turning that baseline and those milestones into actions, and that's a bit of resource to enable them to do that in the meantime while they build up the larger projects and look at the other issues for us to consider within the budget. There are other elements within the budget that address net zero and climate change, which can be seen in the capital programme, but this is specifically about that role and that implementation.
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just to add something to the discussion, the specific £5,000 there, it also will cover the contribution to the Staffordshire Sustainability Partnership, which is obviously a much bigger group, good practice being shared between ourselves and the other districts and the County Council. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any further questions? Oh, Councillor People.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Looking at the budget as a whole, I do have some concerns. I can understand the comments that the leader has made with regard to looking at proposals that are put forward by other councillors and trying to add some value, if you like, but we are in a situation where we are in deficit. So I'm concerned. I appreciate that we have to have a balanced budget, and I applaud the officers who work so hard to make sure that we end up with a balanced budget, but I know that it's been particularly difficult given the aspirations of some of my colleagues. What specifically I wanted to ask about was the key risks to revenue and capital forecasts. I'm slightly alarmed by the number of high risks there are within that table. And again, I'm working on the online version, so I'm on page 21. I'm sure the leader can find that. So, for example, major variances in the level of grant and subsidy from the government, which has already been alluded to by Councillor Cook, potential capping of council tax increases, pension costs higher than planned. Well, that's only medium, although, of course, let's hope we don't get Liz Truss back in power, otherwise that'll be through the roof. But there are a number of high risk factors within that table which could completely unstabilise the budget. And I just wondered if the leader had any comments on that and whether he'd like to give us some assurance as to whether the budget is actually achievable.
Thank you, Councillor People. Councillor Rhodes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor People. Yes, it is achievable, and that's why it's there. You will notice, as I referred to earlier, there are a number of contingencies. When I answered Councillor Cook's question, there are a number of contingencies which are there to mitigate reduced income, particularly from our corporate estate, and there are a number of prudent predictions around income, particularly around treasury management and our investments. You're absolutely right. The uncertainty that is presented to us, a number of us have had to deal with for a number of years now. And imagine if the government gave us a 3-year settlement again. It would make life so much easier. And that's not just local government, that's the whole of the public sector. For a number of years, we've had 1-year settlements. And this year, we've had a few of the figures have stretched to 2 years. So we've got a bit more certainty than we have had recently. But that does present a huge problem to us. And what you've got in front of you there is that risk register and that risk assessment. They are huge risks. Are they likely? Of course they are. Have we done what we can to mitigate them? I think we have. We've spotted them coming, or the risk coming. We've done what we can to mitigate by building in prudent estimates in terms of income and expenditure, and by building in those contingencies. It's never easy, and the previous leader of the Labour group used to actually suggest we shouldn't even try to do 5 years because there's so much uncertainty. It's a futile task. We can only do what we can on the information available. If you look back into the 1980s at council agendas and reports, if you're so inclined, they didn't talk about budgets or medium-term financial strategies. They referred to this document as the estimates for the year, and unfortunately, they are the estimates. We can only go on the best information available and the professional input from the officers we've got, and take on whatever information we can to make sure we make the best and most appropriate decision. But those dangers are very real. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor People.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. As the leader is obviously keen to take a stroll through the history books, once upon a time we used to get government grants that actually meant something. And I've made the point previously in this chamber, what are my Conservative colleagues doing to hold their government to account for the fact that we have been systematically robbed of support? The people of Tamworth actually deserve our help and our support to make Tamworth a wonderful place to live. But we're trying to do it with our hands tied behind our backs, and we really do need to be making representations to government. Now, I can do that, but they'll take no notice of me because I'm a Labour and Cooperative councillor. You should have the ear, so what have you been doing about it?
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Oates.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And if we look at the top of the paper, we look at the draw on reserves, and the draw on reserves is very simply the gap that's left after our income from our activities, our council tax and business rates income, and government grant income. And if you look over the last, I've only got the last 8 years in front of me, that funding gap has ranged from 1.5 million. From 0.063 million through to 2.8 million in terms of that funding gap. The cost of services and the cost of our operation, way back in 2016, the net cost was £8 million, and the net cost now is £9.2 million. And that gap has fluctuated within that window of £2 million throughout that whole period. So yes, it is a significant issue because that funding gap means we have to draw on reserves, and government grants are a big chunk of that income outside of our operation. So what are we doing about it? I will shout at every opportunity for local government to be financed correctly. I won't just do it blandly and say, just give us more money. What I will do is challenge the decisions and the things that come down the hill. So recently I challenged the changes to the elections operation. As politicians, we shouldn't get involved in the operation, but if the operation causes us to have to put our hand in our pockets and spend more because the government have got worried about voter ID or worried about something or other, then that's inappropriate. They need to support us in financing those projects. And let's go back in history. When licensing was taken from the magistrates and dumped on local authorities, the cash didn't follow. It wasn't a reduction in income, it was an increase in burden. So I think we need to be clear that we need to be specific about our lobbying to government and not just run around with a begging bowl. And also I think we need to do it in a collective approach. I do have discussions at the Staffordshire Leaders Board where we discuss what things we can tap up government for and make representation. And the Staffordshire Leaders Board has been set up so that we can have that, not single point of contact, but that collective voice, and government knows where Staffordshire stands and where the district councils stand in Staffordshire in terms of that funding stream. So that lobbying is going on certainly through the Leaders Board and at every opportunity I can on specific issues. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Cook.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor People's questions actually led me on to remember something I wanted to ask. If we take a look at page 34, it does state, and no surprise to any member here, I hope, from 25-26 onwards, it has been assumed that the retained growth will be redistributed as part of the business rates reset, and therefore business rates received will be equivalent to the tariff payable. What that basically means, as we know, Madam Mayor, is that 1.2 million roughly will be removed from this council's budget by the government and redistributed to councils with an adult social care burden. Anybody who can read these papers knows if the government didn't do that, this budget would balance probably over 5 years. That is the fundamental problem this council is facing, is fairer funding formula, which I've said for years isn't fair. In answer to Councillor People's questions to a degree, I continuously, as Leader of this council, wrote to our local MP for nearly 4 years about this issue. The last letter I wrote him was in February 2021. It was one of my last acts as Leader of this council. He wrote back to me in June, and the letter was finally put on my desk in November. I love government efficiency. And I would actually follow Councillor Leader's point. I think Councillor Oates now needs to continue that fight, write to government as quickly as possible, voicing our concerns that this council will struggle to continue to function if fairer funding formula is continued in 2 years. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Do you want to come back on that?
I'm going to throw a lifeline and assume that was a question. What do we know about fairer funding review? What we know is, and the business rates reset and everything, what we know is it's going to happen. What we don't know is when and what it will actually include. Now, I don't want to get into a long, drawn-out discussion with Councillor Cook, but the issues he's raised there, whilst well-informed, are still based on speculation from local government association or ourselves or whatever else, you know. So this links back to the question that was asked by our colleague Councillor People earlier. We're going on the best information we've got available when we consider these figures. It may be in 2 years, it may be in 4 years, but we know at some point business rate reset is going to happen, fairer funding review is going to happen. We also know that through the local government association there's an opportunity to feed in and do that lobbying that was discussed earlier. We've taken into account what we can here, and Councillor Cook's point is absolutely right. If we had an extra 1.2 million quid, it would certainly make our lives a bit easier and would extend that long-term future planning. It is 2023. The date that Councillor Cook referred to in the papers is 2 years' time. I suspect there might be a general election on the horizon at some point, so I suspect we're not going to get any clarity on this issue in the near future, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Are there Councillor Daniels?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Sorry, I thought my question was a separate section. Speaking of general elections, I can think of a way in which Councillor Oates would achieve his desire of that increased public spending. I'm on page 69, and I'm reading about the budget provision to cover the cost of a wide range of neighbourhood works. From the next budget cycle, we will not be funding this particular piece of work, in which I read, were to ensure our council housing estate communal areas are kept clean and safe, to ensure compliance with the social housing regulatory standards around health and safety and neighbourhood management. I also read in the past these types of jobs have ordinarily been picked up by the council's caretaking team. However, due to health and safety, this team deem it no longer safe to carry out these types of works. My two questions are, is it that the works are going or they're changed in their nature? Obviously, I'm concerned when I read about the idea of there's a health and safety concern, and if it's not our team who will kind of deal with these issues, are we asking our residents, particularly for asking them to do something unsafe? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Daniels. Councillor Cook.
Madam Mayor, let's have a chat after the meeting. No problem, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Daniels, for your question, and you're really referring to HNE 13. That budget line is an increase in expenditure of £15,000. It doesn't appear in the following years because it remains at 15,000. So if it appears in the next year, it's an accumulative. So that's 15,000 for the duration of the period. So what's happening is some of those roles that were no longer being done by the caretaking staff or encompassed in those roles are now being handed over to street scene and other teams, and this is the cost of the additional works that they're doing. So it's a 15k investment, and it's year on year, and street scene will be picking up those tasks that the caretaking teams no longer can complete.
Glad to hear they're still going on. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any further questions? If not, then we're going to move to debate. So who would like to start off? Councillor Cook.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I find it actually very difficult this evening, Madam Mayor. It's almost considered the job as the Leader of the Opposition to oppose a budget. And as I stated earlier, I'm going to vote for, 95% of this tonight, Madam Mayor. I'm going to vote for it because this council needs a budget to operate. The staff of this council need to be paid and services need to be delivered next year. It'd be very easy for myself to make some wonderful political points in this speech, bash some people around, pretend I really know what I'm doing. But the reality is the people who know what they're doing are our officers, and our officers need to be able to function next year. The reality of where we are, Madam Mayor, is whether I agree with elements of this budget or not, whether I think there's overspending, underspending, it's spent in the wrong area. They're all issues we can discuss through scrutiny committees leading up to next year's budget as the process always unfolds. As Councillor Ross rightly says, we've been taken through a process. This is where we've ended up. We've all had a chance to input. We've all had a chance to make our arguments. I tried to hold Councillor Oates' feet to the fire earlier with some complicated questions. He came through it okay. I think we both look like two people that know what we're talking about if we're being fair. What I would honestly say, Madam Mayor, is the bit I'm struggling with in this budget is recommendation 1. You'll be aware that at the State of the Borough debate last year, the independent group pointed out that actually we have some serious concerns about the council's vision. That actually we don't think it picks up elements such as vulnerability, homelessness, mental health and the voluntary sector. I'm informed by the Chief Executive the piece of work we requested from the State of the Borough debate around looking at is our vision fit for purpose and are there some gaps that we're missing is almost complete, and that's a debate for another day. What I would honestly offer the Conservative group tonight, from my perspective, is if we could vote for item 1 as a separate item, I will happily vote for the rest of the items because I believe this council needs a budget. This is the budget we have available to us tonight, Madam Mayor, and I'm prepared to support it. I have some issues with it. Those are issues to take on through the year. Don't forget, once we set a budget, it is, as Councillor Oates rightly said, an estimate. Otherwise, we just present the statement of accounts a year early. We've got time within the year to challenge lines, to change things, and really push for those savings and those changes that we need. So let's take what's in front of us this evening. I can't support item 1, so if that was broken away as a separate recommendation to be voted on, I'd be happy. Let's get this done, let's get this through, and let's all join together over the next 12 months and really challenge for better services down across this chamber. Let's take this for what it is, move forward, and really drive from all elements of the chamber for better this year. I can't find myself supporting this vision until those changes we request at the State of the Borough debate are enacted, Madam Mayor. There's some wonderful passages in this budget I really could have had some digs at. You know, page 6, local government will not get any changes in funding or long-term commitments until the general election. I could make jokes of why is everybody waiting for a Labour government to fix the problems. That'd be unfair, Madam Mayor. I wrote speeches like this over the last few days and I just thought to myself, it's fundamentally unfair. I offer that to the Conservative group. If I can move the motion that we vote on item 1 separately to the rest of the budget, I'd be happy to support the rest of the budget, Madam Mayor, and I'm happy to put that on the table. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Sorry, Councillor Kingston.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm happy to second that, and I'll reserve the right because I'd like to come back and put some context into why I'm prepared to second that motion.
Right, so item 1, we have a mover, Councillor Cook. No? I'll ask for a mover then.
Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, at the end of my speech, I moved the 28 recommendations Councillor Pritchard seconded, so they're on the table. I think the way to deal with Councillor Cook's motion, obviously pending legal advice and information from the Chief Exec, is to take that as an amendment and we consider item 1 individually and then 2 to 28 en bloc. So I would suggest that it's to be considered as an amendment to the original motion, that they're separated. But I've got no legal support, so it's over to those.
may, Madam Mayor, the advice I've had is, yes, we can take it as an amendment to the motion that's been passed. So the amendment would need to be moved, seconded, we would then go to questions, debate, and then ultimately to the vote.
Madam Mayor, I'm totally in agreement with the leader. We've had this motion or amendment put and now seconded by myself, and I'm now sat patiently waiting to add some context into the reason as to why I'm prepared to second this motion. So at your discretion, Madam Mayor, I'd like to make my comments known to the Chamber.
Yes. Well, if we've had it moved and seconded, have we got a seconder? Have you moved it? You've seconded. Right, we'll go to questions then.
Sorry, Madam Mayor, it's not a question to the mover, it's a question for legals. It's my understanding that the budget and MTFS has to be treated as a named vote, and also the declarations of interest around council tax arrears and all that. Blah, blah. And it's only a little technical thing. If this is separated out, do we have a named vote on recommendation 1 and then a named vote on the 2 to 28, but we just have a show of hands on the motion? I'm just trying to make sure it's as clear as possible when we get to the different voting stages.
Madam Mayor, if it helps, I can point you to the right rule. It's in Constitution, it's Rule 4.17.7, recorded votes at Budget Council decision meetings. And the budget itself has to be subject to a named vote, but the vision and priorities doesn't have to be.
Do you wish to speak?
With your indulgence, Madam Mayor, it might help the Chamber. I say all the recommendations have been moved and seconded, but I'm sure the Mayor could invite us to vote for recommendation 1 and then invite the rest of the Chamber to vote on the other recommendations after, which may avoid the need for all these separate amendments and changes to the procedure.
Seconded.
Yeah, it has been moved and seconded, yes.
Take a show of hands on that amendment, just to make it right, and then we'll take the vote on that one first, and then the rest of the budget.
This motion on the table. Yeah.
Okay, I think on behalf of the Mayor, I'd like to perhaps suggest that Councillor Pritchard's suggestion is sensible. I think it meets with the amendment to the motion. I would, however, ask that we have a show of hands on the amendment to make it right, to make it the motion on the table. Then we will take a show of hands on recommendation 1. We will then take a named vote on all the other recommendations. That's up to this, James. Up to the Mayor. But
if you wish to debate it, I will allow that. If you want to start off.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I just wanted to explain for the benefit of members in the room and the public watching, because we do have quite a few who do like to watch these council meetings and watch the shenanigans that go on, is that, first of all, to have a council who is able to run as efficiently as this one is absolutely brilliant. It always amazes me every year when we consider how much revenue we actually take in council tax from the residents, that we're actually to be able to deliver a budget that provides services, whether we get grants from local government or central government rather or not. When you actually look at what is presented there, and as Councillor Cook has said, you can argue about the nitty-gritty and the finer points and all that sort of stuff, but full credit to the officers for putting together, yet again, a budget that provides services for the people of Tamworth, and full credit to everybody involved in that. I know I wasn't about for the joint scrutiny budget meeting and all the other bits and pieces as well, but I just wanted to put on record my thanks to everybody who's had some input into this budget to be able to bring it forwards to the point we are at tonight. And also for the members of the public, as has already been said, we do have to confirm and have a budget that works, that we're able to then present and work with for the coming year. And I simply don't have the skill set to understand fully the contents of the budget, and I'm saying that now as a matter of public record, so I have to rely on officers and reading the reports and trying to understand it myself. What I do have issue with is item 1, and I just wanted my issues with item 1 putting on record for that. If we look at the economy on page 47, we've got there reference to improved tourism in terms of good access, and I'm just picking on little things here, and perhaps the controlling group can take what I'm about to say away and perhaps work with it. Improved tourism in terms of access to information for visitors. Reference has already been made tonight about another brilliant board going up outside the old co-op talking about William McGregor. However, when you actually go and have a look at that notice board, it is full of inaccuracies. It refers to him as a fiery Scot, and he's not. He was born in Liverpool, yeah. So there's an awful lot wrong with the information that we as a council are starting to send out to people. And I think that's partly because, as a council, we've stopped consulting with some of our voluntary groups out there. Groups like the Peel Society, groups like the Friends of Tamworth Castle, the Heritage Trust, the Civic Society, all of them are saying to me, when I met with several of them last night, they have lost contact with our council. And if we had restored or maintained that level of input and contact, then we wouldn't be making mistakes. Now that board, I dare say, has cost a few £1,000s. And it's just one example. It needs to be corrected. Otherwise, we're going to end up presenting a false image of our history and heritage, not only to the people of Tamworth, but to visitors. If we look at infrastructure, if we talk about ensure more people can access council services, I know it adds the bit digitally. And I know there was a bit of a spat the other week with the leader and myself about the lack of a front desk. Despite what anybody might say in this chamber, we no longer have a front desk that people can go to when they need to speak to somebody. It's all very well saying you can go to the TIC or the box office of the assembly rooms, but informal conversations with the staff there and informal conversations with the people that have actually tried to get support and help when they need it, it's not available to them. We need to put that right as a council, all of us, by working together, not by arguing or fighting. There's reference in there to, where are we? Working with partners to ensure the fear of crime within Tamworth. What about actual crime, as opposed to the fear of crime? We could argue about, you need to report it and you need to do X, Y, and Z, but there is real crime taking place here in Tamworth. And remember, I speak as somebody who works on the other side and sees the crime presented to me to deal with. So we have to accept that crime is happening and is an issue here in Tamworth. So again, we've got issues there that we need to be more. I suppose what I'm trying to say is this vision is all very well and good, But is it something a bit like a mission statement? Something that a rep what reads while he's rubbing his shoes, waiting to go into somebody's office while he's waiting in reception? The vision is an opportunity to deliver something for the people of Tamworth. And this vision just doesn't do it. It's a bit wishy-washy is what I'm saying. There's no mention really in there about the issues that I deal with on a daily basis to do with the state of our housing stock. We need to address that. And I'm sure we all get questions from members of the public about damp at this time of year. And yes, some of it will be down to the way that people dry clothes in the house, but an awful lot of it is down to the poor state of our housing stock. So we need to be addressing that. So, Madam Mayor, thank you for allowing me to rant. I apologise. I'll calm down in case my dicky ticker gives in. But please, can we try and get a more meaty vision statement for next year? Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Does anybody wish to add to the debate? If not, then we're going to vote by a show of hands on the amendment.
Yes.
Sorry, I didn't see your hand, sorry.
Sorry, Madam Mayor, it is a point of order, and I'm really sorry to prolong proceedings, but I'm a little confused. As I understand it, the proposal is to take recommendation A separately, and as I understand from what the Chief Executive said, that doesn't require a named vote because it's not actually the budget. That's not a problem, but my problem is in the preamble to the report, it says, purpose, to approve the vision statement, priority themes, blah, 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 attached to Appendix A. And then, secondly, to approve the recommended package of budget proposals attached at Appendix B, and then lists various things. But I don't see that in the list of recommendations. So if it's not in the list of recommendations, then are we actually voting on the budget at all? And if I've confused myself or missed something, I'm very happy for somebody to put me right. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further debate?
During his question.
Sorry, Madam Mayor, could we perhaps clear up that point of order first before we go to further debate? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. If it assists, all of the other individual recommendations form part of the budget in total. So recommendations 2 through to 28 form the actual budget. And if
Yes, thank you. Thank you through you, Madam Mayor. I did understand that. What I was saying was, in the purpose section, it says to approve the recommended package of budget proposals attached to Appendix B, and to enable the council to agree the general fund, the revenue budget, the council tax, the housing revenue. I don't see those specifically listed anywhere in the actual recommendations. They might just be expressed in a different way or hidden or something, but I'm confused. Thank you.
Thank you.
She's confused. I'll ask the 151 officer to make a technical comment on that.
Is he here? Okay, where is he?
Madam Mayor, if I may, I'll ask our Section 151 officer just to add a point of clarity on that question, being he's here.
Yep. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, they are all included in there. For example, if you look at recommendation 7D, that's the approval of the council tax for the year. Right. So they are all included in that, those statutory recommendations that we have to agree as part of the budget setting council to approve the package of budget measures. So it's the wording at the start is a sort of a summary wording that Appendix B contains all of that. But yeah, each individual recommendation needs to be approved. Yes. Yeah. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, thank you very much, and thank you to the officer for that clarification.
Thank you, Councillor.
Anybody else for debate, or do we go show of hands on the
Right.
amendment?
Right. Does anybody wish to add to the debate? If not, we're going to have a show of hands on the amendment. So, Show of hands then, all in favour? Okay. Against? Any abstentions? Councillor Daniels. The amendment is carried. So we are now going to have a vote, a named vote.
Show of hands. Show of hands. On recommendation 1.
Oh, show of hands on recommendation 1. Yeah.
Sorry, just a quick point of order. That vote was on the separating number 1 versus the rest of it. Doesn't that then mean we go back into debate of the original motion rather than moving straight to the vote?
You don't want to go, do you?
Pardon? No, but I'm just thinking of a point of principle. If anyone potentially wants.
It's been carried, so we go onto the new amendment. The amendment is carried, so that becomes a substantive issue.
Right, okay.
So we are now going to a named vote.
Show of hands.
Show of hands. Oh, not a named vote.
Show of hands on the first, on the vision statement. And then we'll go. Then we'll go
Okay.
to a named vote on recommendations 2 to 28.
Okay. So we're going to go to a show of hands on recommendation number 1. All in favour?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, 10, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. Okay.
All those against?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
So that's carried.
It's carried.
That's carried. Thank you. So we now go to the named vote on 2 to 28. So, all in favour? No? Got a debate first?
No.
What then?
I'll deal with the name vote.
Oh, right, yes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. If we can take a name vote. Councillor Claymore.
Sorry, point of order. 14.4.2 or whatever it is. We didn't ever go back to debate on the original motion. So, I mean, in terms of, does anyone else want to speak? Because I know I would have commented on that, but I'm not saying I will now, but I'm saying we did go, for anyone watching, there was an amendment that was moved. Process I was sort of, kind of, the chief exec said, it was moved, seconded, questions, debate, it passed. It should then go back to the original motion that was on the table, shouldn't it? Because that was an amendment. Well, it wasn't, but it was an amendment.
That being so, we are going to a named vote.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay. Councillor Claymore. Councillor Clements.
4.
Councillor Daniel Cook. Councillor Michelle Cook.
4.
Councillor Chris Cook. Councillor Cooper.
4.
Councillor Daniels.
Against?
Councillor Doyle.
4.
Councillor Farrell.
4.
Councillor Goodall.
4.
Councillor Greatrex.
4.
Councillor Harper.
4.
Councillor Jones.
4.
Councillor Kingston.
4.
Councillor Maycock.
4.
Councillor Oates.
4.
Councillor People.
Against?
Councillor Price.
4.
Councillor Pritchard.
4.
Councillor Rogers.
4.
Councillor Smith.
4.
Councillor Summers.
4.
Councillor Turner.
4.
Councillor Thurgood.
4.
Councillor Wade.
4.
By 23 to 2, that is carried. So thank you all for that very long and interesting session. We'll now move on to agenda item number 7, and I'm going to hand over to Councillor Martin Summers.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm going to, don't worry. I'm bringing a motion forward to full council tonight regarding loneliness and isolation, which are a serious public health issue. They're serious public health issues that deserve more attention. Residents can find themselves isolated for a number of reasons, leaving individuals at risk of suffering from health issues, mental health problems, or other urgent needs without much needed help. We recognise that this is a particular risk to the elderly and disabled. This is an issue that must be tackled at a local as well as national level. My motion I'm bringing forward tonight, and I thank those who supported it being brought, is as follows. The authority can play a central role in helping to reduce social isolation and loneliness, and work to further improve information and advice on existing services and activities that reduce loneliness and isolation, work with local partners to launch a campaign to raise awareness of the health effects of loneliness and isolation amongst target risk groups, support our voluntary and community sector partners to take an active interest and role in ensuring the public health problem of social isolation in Tamworth is recognised, task scrutiny to look at the issue of social isolation, work to ensure addressing loneliness and isolation is reflected in relevant strategy of the authority. And I so move, Madam Mayor, and reserve the right. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Councillor Wade?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I appreciate what Councillor Summers is trying to do, but unless it's backed up by real cash, and instead of keep putting the burden on the charity community, I'm not going to get anywhere with it. And I always say this, an SE, a sympathetic ear, is better than somebody walking past.
Thank you. Are there any further questions? Councillor Daniels?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In preparation for this motion, which I've got to say we're really pleased to read, just that focus of the community, that idea of what can we be doing in our role as councillors, but also the Borough Councillor was a real pleasing read, and there's lots of really good ideas in it. Thank you. I was working with my former Tamworth Pride Committee colleague, Lee Bates, in part of the work that they're doing with CTCIC to kind of better understand some of the projects. And my understanding is what you're saying is how can we work together better to support those initiatives, and what could they do to support us as well. One issue that Lee Bates raised was to do with assets. In the high-rise flats, the residents recently highlighted through an inquiry that there was a high-rise social club. However, in this particular block, so it's kind of separate to where the main accommodation is, only a few residents have keys, and they would like to perhaps use this space more for just that, as John Wade said, that conversation, that cuppa, we can understand one each other better. They talked about the different skills that they have, teaching people to knit, to perhaps to use social media better. And just one of the thoughts I kind of had was how can we perhaps be using our council assets better? For example, that space within the high rises, to have suitable venues to host community activities, not only in the town centre, but also elsewhere in all our wards. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor People.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. This is actually a question, again, slightly as a point of order. We seem to be slightly off the agenda here. Can I just confirm, this is item 9 that we're on now. We seem to have missed out items 7 and 8. Yep, that's fine. I'm making the comment, Madam Mayor, purely for the benefit of people who might be watching or listening at home, who might now be wondering what's happened to items 7 and 8. Thank you.
Thank you. I can only claim my computer's gone down, so I'm not able to follow anything on here, and I've just got some written instructions. Indeed, it has been, I have gone to 9, does anybody else wish to speak on item 9? I think I've got, well, I had Danny Cook's name down first.
Sorry, just a quick point of order. Can we just check? I know Councillor Summers is looking as perplexed. Can we do questions and then go on to debate? Thanks.
On item number 9, agenda item number 9. Yeah, Councillor Michelle Cook.
Thanks. So I don't know if Councillor Wade or Councillor Sarah's questions were questions.
If I may, Madam Mayor, I'll try and remember the questions and ask otherwise. Councillor Wade, you basically alluded to why are we relying so heavily on the third sector, if I'm right. We work in partnership with the third sector, Councillor Wade, and we do our best to fund them to do what they do as well. Officers of the council are by no means experts in some of the things that the third sector do, and some of the best support people get is from the third sector, and I would always continue to expand communities caring for communities. There's nothing wrong with that in any way, shape or form, as long as we can back that up with support. As far as your question regarding use of space and
just kind
assets,
of what assets we kind of have, you know, to perhaps have as part of this conversation. Thank you.
I can't imagine that's a problem in principle. I mean, my colleague to my left appears to agree that that should be something we should look at. We do try, where possible, to find homes for those that need them, and I know Councillor Bates has helped, you know, a lot. Sorry, Councillor Bates. I'm going back to 2006. Yeah, I know that Lee Bates has helped enormously finding homes for the voluntary sector and supporting them as well. So, yeah, anything we can do, we would look at. As we say, no ideas dismissed out of hand. I'm happy to take further questions, Madam Mayor, of course, now.
Thank you. Councillor Cook.
Thank you. Yeah, so I mean, obviously, should we say, fully support kind of what the motion's looking at doing. Most of the kind of the points within it are, I'd call it kind of statements. In fact, yes, we can play a role in kind of social isolation and loneliness as an example, and it does specifically say about kind of tasking the scrutiny to look at the issue of social isolation. That side of things obviously will go through the scrutiny process. Is there any kind of thing from your perspective at the moment you're saying, actually, I want to bring forward in a particular kind of time scale? Because obviously there's hundreds of thousands of people nationally that don't speak to anyone. Socialisation is a massive issue, and we know it is locally. So is there anything, should we say, short term that you're looking at bringing forward versus the longer term scrutiny aspect? And can you be specific in your motion which scrutiny committee that you're looking at it to go to, or is that still up for debate? Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Summers.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just to address the committees first, what your committee's called Homeless and Social Housing and Homeless
Subcommittee. It's a mouth.
Yeah, Alex's committee.
Housing Committee.
The Housing Committee. And I would imagine it would fit well under the Health and Wellbeing Committee as well. So in terms of anything specific that needs to be addressed, I would say that given the issues now being highlighted, it wouldn't be for me to define scrutiny's work plan on that, but certainly handing scrutiny, this is what we need to look at, and you now delve into that, I think is the most appropriate way around it. If I were to start dictating to them, or try to start dictating to them what they did within their work plan, I think we'd have some angry chair people. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Right. So,
Any other questions?
are there any other questions? If not, we'll... Oh, Councillor People.
I think I slightly preempted you there, Madam Mayor, on your if not, we'll move to debate, and mine was debate.
I need a mover, please. Councillor Daniel. Did your hand go? Yeah.
No, I did move it.
Sorry, seconder then. Seconder. Councillor Daniels.
Sorry, apologies, Madam Mayor, I thought it had been moved.
Right, so we're going to the vote.
No, debate now.
Debate. So I've got vote here.
Follow the pen.
Okay, sorry. Beg your pardon. Debate. Who'd like to start debate? Councillor Cook and then Councillor People.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Absolutely. I don't think there's any one of us in this chamber that would vote against this motion. I do have some questions about how this motion got here, but I'm absolutely not opposed to this motion. I think, and I'm trying not to keep revisiting the point, and it echoes Councillor Kingston's point earlier, is this is absolutely what Tamworth Borough Council should be about. Yet none of this is reflected in the vision of the council. That's the point we were trying to make during the budget. These are serious issues that are taking place in Tamworth that are not addressed as important priorities by this council through our vision statement. That's why we were opposed to the vision, because it's missing out on the real problems in Tamworth. I mean, we know social isolationism historically has been a problem in Tamworth, but there is stuff out there already taking place, the befriending scheme and everything else. This council funded a befriending scheme in 2019. Unfortunately, it didn't work. Myself and Councillor Doyle turned it off in 2019, but the voluntary sector were better placed to continue it and have been continuing it well. So what I would suggest that scrutiny committee do is tap into what's already going on out there, because you'll find out there's a lot going on, and if this council adds it for support full time, you'll find this could really, really take off and solve a real problem in society. But it does reflect on it yet again. This is the problem with our vision. It's missing out on the real issues in Tamworth. And that's all I want to say, Madam Mayor, but absolutely support it. Only a madman or a madwoman couldn't support this. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor People.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Absolutely support the motion with a caveat. And I'm also absolutely certain that this wasn't the intention. But when I first read this motion, I was slightly disappointed, because I think the way that the motion is worded doesn't recognise the sterling work that is already being done. Now, Councillor Summers has already been to visit us at Heart of Tamworth, of which I'm a trustee, and so you've seen what we're up to, and there's loads of voluntary groups around the town that are doing similar things. I think also the motion doesn't recognise the sterling work that's already being done by council officers in facilitating those conversations and those partnerships. With an apology for a blatant plug, I'm just going to run through really quickly some of the things that Heart of Tamworth, which is my charity that I was formerly chair of and still am a trustee, is doing to help to combat loneliness and isolation. So first of all, we've got a lottery-funded community cafe, which is staffed almost exclusively by volunteers, specifically there to create opportunities for social integration. We have a community shop which gives people the opportunity, particularly people on low incomes, to come along and meet other people and have a chat over the sprouts. We have a Wednesday lunch club for older socially isolated residents. We have various youth groups. We have parent and toddler groups. We have a dementia cafe, which provides relief from loneliness and support for any resident who cares to join us who's living with dementia. We have a Friendship Friday group, which is fun, friendship and support for, again, any resident who cares to come and join us. We do a Christmas Day lunch for people who are living with loneliness and who are homeless, coming out of homelessness. I did the cooking. And I should also say that Councillor Wadrup gave up her Christmas Day to come and help. Councillor Daniels is a regular volunteer at the shop. We have craft groups, and we also have funding for homelessness support. We're not the only group in town. There's loads of groups. And I think what I would like to do is to ask for an amendment to this motion. And what I would like to ask Councillor Summers and his colleagues who put forward the motion to agree to is that we simply insert some wording that recognises the sterling work that's already being done, because I wouldn't want people out there in Tamworth to think that that wasn't recognised. I have a form of words, if I may, Madam Mayor. After the words "this motion," add in recognises the sterling work done by our charity, voluntary and third sector organisations and the excellent work done by council officers and then the motion continues. I put that forward as an amendment, Madam Mayor, and look for a seconder. Thank you.
Oh, I've got several. Councillor Claymore? Yes. What a seconder.
So,
Did
Councillor Cook did indicate.
I thought you? Sorry, I thought you were putting your hands up for.
Sorry, Madam Mayor, I was going to second the motion with a
Okay.
little bit of preamble. That's the point I was trying to get to, and Councillor Peebles is absolutely correct. We need to remember this work is taking place.
Yeah.
And for this council to pretend we're just starting it is wrong. We do need to recognise those charities already doing this. That's all I was going to say, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Summers.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I absolutely agree. It wasn't designed whatsoever to take away from the good work that's already happening, because there absolutely is. And I don't know where we'd have been during the pandemic if it wasn't for the efforts of our voluntary sector. I think to try and make things simpler, Madam Mayor, if I'm perfectly happy with the amended wording, if we can just put that amended wording into my motion as it is, then we don't have to vote on the amendment to the motion then. We can just vote on my motion with the added wording.
Okay. So you're changing your amendment, your motion.
I'm amending my I'm
Amend-
amending my motion.
Yeah.
But
amending.
not having to vote on the amendment separately.
Okay, it's getting a bit complicated.
Councillor Oates.
Councillor Oates.
I wanted to make comment on the amendment. I'm not sure if it's moved or it's changed it or what at the minute.
I don't know.
You know, my only point was fully hear what's being said by the councillors opposite, and fully support the volunteer work that goes on in Tamworth. And during announcements, I very often make reference to different groups doing different things. I have attended part of Tamworth, and I think Mr. Peoples bought me a coffee last time I was there. There are a number of things which this piece of work, if it goes through scrutiny, will draw out. And it's not only the contribution that these groups are making, it's also previous work that's been done, whether it be within Tamworth Borough Council Authority or elsewhere. Pre-pandemic, Councillor Jones and I travelled to Stafford a number of times and did a great deal of work at a county level on an all-party working group into loneliness. It was pre-pandemic and the world has changed since then, but there were back then and now there are tens of thousands of people who are lonely. However, they're still surrounded by people. So there's a lot of work that's already gone into this. There's a lot of work that the Borough Council currently does, and there's a lot of work that charities and groups normally do. So my concern with the amendment is that whilst we recognise certain ones, we then miss other ones out, and we distract the direction. So I wonder if actually we ask scrutiny to look at all-encompassing, including all the recognising all the groups, recognising the work that currently takes place, which has been mentioned elsewhere, and the work that's previously been done by different authorities. Just broadening that scope to encompass that issue. And by no means am I trying to distract any thanks for those groups. It's just pulling it all together as a broader picture with all the pieces of the jigsaw, so we can identify what's missing. Just a comment, really.
Thank you.
Councillor Summers has.
Yes, Councillor Summers has agreed to the amendment. Yes.
If I may, Madam Mayor, rather than it being an amendment, my substantive motion, just have the wording that Councillor People has suggested added on, so that we can put it forward as a motion completely, rather than having an amendment to vote on separately and then my motion.
Cook.
I can fix this, Madam Mayor. If Councillor Summers withdraws his motion, Councillor People's motion is the one left on the table, which is exactly where we're trying to get to anyway. Just withdraw your motion and we're exactly where we need to be.
Madam Mayor, if I may, I'm very happy if Councillor Summers is prepared to accept that additional wording, that's added to the motion and we vote on that motion as added to, and I'm leaving out the word amended to avoid confusion.
Councillor Cook.
Thank you. Just a quick comment. Earlier, it was alluded to by members opposite that certain members on this side were putting people above politics, or politics above people. May I suggest that the reason that Councillor Summers doesn't want to remove his motion is because of the fact he wants to have his name on the ticket. It doesn't matter whose name on the ticket. It's about actually making sure that this really important issue actually happens. I'm not saying that's the case, and I'm sorry if it's not the case, but by withdrawing it, it means that it votes through. I don't think anyone's going to disagree with it. And we move on to the next item. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Summers.
Madam Mayor, I'm not going to respond to that utter drivel, other than to say, please just vote on the amendment and we'll do it that way if it's easier. I wasn't withdrawing my motion, I was merely changing it. But let's vote on the amendment, shall we?
So we're voting on the amendment now. Want to move in a second for the amendment? Oh.
Sorry, point of personal clarification there. Did Councillor Summers just say that my comment was utter drivel? Is that how we respond to members?
I shall let Councillor Summers respond to that if he wishes.
No, I'm quite happy with what I said. Thank you.
As we're determined to keep this messy, madam, if Councillor Summers is amending his original motion, then it needs re-seconding because it's a different motion that was already moved. It's better if he just withdraws the motion, accept Councillor Peoples' motion, and we can all move on.
Councillor Farrell.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Happy to second Councillor Summers' amendment and I reserve the right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just trying to encapsulate where we've come to now. As I understand it and as I heard it, Councillor Summers has taken the decision to amend his own motion with the wording kindly provided by Councillor People. Therefore, that is now the substantive motion that we're discussing. We now need to, for the minutes and for good governance, probably move it and second it. We can then go to any further questions. We can then go to debate. We can then go to vote on the actual motion. That keeps it square from a governance point of view.
Happy to move it, Madam Mayor.
And Madam Mayor, in the spirit of cooperation, I'm happy to second it.
Who was it? To you, Councillor Farrell? Oh.
No. Councillor Summers.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions?
Any debate? No.
If not, we'll move to debate. Does anybody wish to start?
Councillor Chris Cook.
Councillor Cook.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just before all this obviously happened again, what I wanted to say about this is I'm much rather pleased to be supporting this, especially with what's been added in. As a council, we all have our roles to play in these charities and also other groups as well. But it's not just us as councillors either. It's always us as people that we just literally walk out every day. The other person not as a councillor. I also help out in other groups. So you so all though where the council and the councillors are doing everything as well. You just always want to be aware and recognise that anybody can help out, and no matter who they are, etc. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you want to speak, Councillor Clement? No. Right.
Councillor Maycock.
Oh, hang on, how many? Councillor Maycock first.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So this actually came to scrutiny last week, and I'm glad it's come to full council this week, because it again highlights how important it is for it to be already have been in the scrutiny committee, but have been brought up at full council now. Did recommend that officers go away and try and put together a all councillors briefing, such as the one that was done 2 years ago for the whole voluntary sector, but this one to be more specifically aimed at loneliness/addiction. So the loneliness is covered in this. But after that has been undertook, I'm more than happy for it to go back onto the health and wellbeing scrutiny agenda.
Thank you. Oh, Councillor Wade.
Just to reiterate what I said, is there actually generally any money behind this and not all just charity venture? Because we can all come up with ideas that generally help people, which is the help already out there, and we can highlight that help. But is there generally money behind it to gather it so we can actually help the people and not just direct them into charities what already overburdened? That's what I want to know. Is there real money behind of it, or is it just written down on a piece of papers so we can all just put our name and say, yeah, we brought it to scrutiny, we can do this, we can do that. Let's get some money behind it and do some real help.
Thank you, Councillor Wade. Councillor Doyle?
On Councillor Wade's comments, it's if you work with council officers, they can show you where to get funding from and give you advice and guidance. I've worked quite closely with them, and they've actually managed to find additional funding for activities at Pennymore Community Centre. One thing I would say as well is I've actually took some positives from tonight and listening to the discussion and the comments put forward. I mean, I've been building up a slow list all night of ideas to take back to Pennymore Community Centre and look to do stuff in Stonydale, working with the volunteers there who are very enthusiastic. I mean, there's some really good ideas there, and it's actually promoted some of my own as well, sitting here listening to it. So to the people watching us, they might think there's been a game of table tennis going on, but there has been some ideas batted about, and there is what you call it, a genuine will to do better for the people of Tamworth. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Doyle. Right, it is 8:30. Oh, Councillor Cook.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. If it helps the full council now that the bell has gone, I'm happy to move we take the question on the item currently on the table with the amendment that's been agreed. That we also agree item 7 and item 8 as they are, with the agreement they go immediately to scrutiny because it needs some flesh put on the bones, and that we send item 10 to the planning committee and let the planning committee choose their own chairman. I move so motion, Madam Mayor.
Yes. So, going straight to the vote then on the motion. Oh, Councillor.
I'm happy to second that and reserve the right.
Okay. Councillor Oates.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Whilst I support the sentiment and the approach, I don't believe we can do that with agenda item 10. Happy to move agenda item 10 separately, but take the other two as suggested.
Yes.
I know we're at risk of getting past the bell and Mr Barrett's about to disagree, Madam Mayor. Actually, the Constitution gives no right to this council to actually choose the scrutiny chairman. It's a misreading of the Constitution. If you actually read 4.2, the first ordinary meeting of the year, 4.2.9 will decide the allocation of chairmans to committees. The ordinary meetings from 4.2.14 list no right for this council to choose a chairman. If you actually look at readable precedent, the intent of the rule as originally written was for full council at the start of the year to allocate the chairmanships and then leave the committees to sort it themselves. Hence my motion is to go to the original intent of the Constitution as written, which is send it to the planning committee, which should have sorted this in the first place. Actually, it's a misreading of the Constitution.
Well, thank you. Yes, I think I was going to say we're getting legal advice on that.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. If it helps the committee, constitutionally 4.2.24 gives myself as Chief Executive the right to put any item on the agenda. I've therefore put this matter on the agenda as I believe that planning has to have a chairperson appointed to it, and the Constitution doesn't give us any other option to go to.
Right. Am I right in thinking we've still got to vote on item 9?
Item 7 and item 8.
Yes, well...
7, 8 and 9. Item 7,
yes,
8 and 9.
7 and...
7, 8 and 9.
We're doing them all together?
Yeah.
Right. Well, we're taking it that they've been moved and seconded, so we're going to the vote. All in favour? Okay, no.
Against?
Anyone against?
Any abstentions?
Any abstentions? One.
Okay, that's carried.
Councillor Daniels. Okie dokie.
So, agenda item 10.
Yep.
Ask this is nominations.
So, item number 10 is to appoint the chair of Planning Committee. Are there any nominations for the chair of the Planning Committee? And I will need a proposer and a seconder for any nomination. Councillor Turner.
Madam Mayor, it gives me great pleasure to actually propose Councillor Cooper to be chair of that planning committee.
Very much. Have I got a seconder? Councillor Cook. Thank you. Are there any other nominations? No. Okay. So we're going to take a vote. All in favour of Councillor Turner? Councillor Cooper?
Against everybody. That's carried, yeah. Any against?
Any against?
Abstention.
No abstentions? None. Thank you.
That's carried.
That is carried. And hopefully that brings us to the end of a very long, trying meeting. Thank you all. Have a safe journey home.